really, like, what we're talking about are the rhythms, the rhythms of a church, and what we feel called to and what we're up to, the ways in which we can continue to grow with each other and to grow with God. And there's a lot of, Sunday morning is a rhythm, right? We show up on Sundays collectively, and we do unique things in here that we wouldn't do otherwise in a home. And I think much of life is rhythmic, especially in life with God. Even a moment ago, I bet when LJ was like, let's hear the brothers, I don't know about you, but I'm like, shoot, I don't got a rhythm. I got to sing out loud. Right? You know, like, anyone else feel that? There's that nervousness, right? Some of the women maybe less than the men. I don't know. But, like, you ever think about that, whether you have rhythm or not? Do you know anyone with, like, really bad rhythm? Yeah? Like, if you don't know someone with bad rhythm, it might be you. Just a heads up. So, like, next party you go to and start dancing, just, like, watch the people move away from you, it's because you don't have rhythm. So you can pay attention to that. But rabbit trail, this guy has no rhythm, and I think this is applicable to our lives in Scripture today. Literally the title of the video. Not bad. Like, it's getting worse. I don't know who coughed. Don't worry, there's more. Like, I don't know how this guitarist is keeping a straight face. Like, he has to hear this. At the end, we're almost there. It stays bad. It doesn't get better at any point. There we go. This dude is in his own world, clapping to who knows what. Like, other people in there are doing a pretty good job. Like, they're, bumping their head, doing their hands, all the things. But, like, just zero rhythm. Now, I'd be curious, real quick, like, as you watch this video, especially you musicians, I know you're probably quite agitated right now, so sorry. But if you were to, like, name a few words that kind of came up in that experience for you, like, how was that experience? How would you describe that? What just happened? Cringe. Awkward. Off-putting. Embarrassing. Right? And, I have, like, a small bit of anxiety inside of me from that. Like, I'm not sure what to do with that. Like, there's a rub there in a very unique way. So in all of that, as we think about literally the no rhythm dude, I'd be curious, like, what's rhythm look like in your life? Do you have rhythm? Now, no one needs to stand up and prove this. We're not going to find out, like, people with the rhythm go to this side of the room. But, like, do you have rhythm in your life? Maybe the better question is, what kind of rhythm do you have? Because the reality is that we all have rhythms. You wake up every morning. That would be a rhythm. You may or may not eat breakfast. That would be a rhythm. You get in your car to go to work. That would be a rhythm. You tend to your garden. That would be a rhythm. Right? You keep going on and on and on, and you have these rhythms. But then I wonder, like, I don't know, maybe you're a parent, and you want to become a better parent, a more loving, encouraging, grace-filled parent. Maybe you're married, and it's like, man, I want to become a better husband or a better wife. Maybe you're not married, and you're looking towards to enter into a relationship, and you're working towards that, and you want to be available, and you want to grow as a person in your own self, in your relationship with Jesus. Like, as you start to look at those bigger things in life, I'd be curious of the things that you desire and want, what are the rhythms that are actually getting you there? Because if you think about a rhythm, even the one you go to work, what does it do? It prepares you to go to work each day. You go and you do your thing. There's a rhythm built in that is shaping the way in which you do work. It means you show up, or maybe you log into your computer. I don't know. But it's the rhythms throughout the week. So then I think about, okay, your life with God. Like, there's rhythms. You show up to church on Sunday. You may or may not crack your Bible. You may or may not pray. There's certain rhythms they're in the foundation of it. But then I wonder, like, okay, I'm thinking about, I want to be less angry. Or, like, there's this resentfulness in my life that is just eating at me. whatever it is that you're desiring and going, the challenge in most of this is you can't like will your way to it. Like, I'm just going to be a more gracious person today. Like, I'm just going to just grace every moment. Like, I'm just, you know what, I need to be a more forgiving person. I'm just going to become forgiving. Like, whatever it is that you want to become, do you have rhythms that actually sustain that actually move you forward? Or is it like, man, this Christianity thing and following God, like, okay, cool, I'll show up to church on Sunday because that's what my parents did, or that's what I think I'm supposed to do, or, you know, so my friends go, I don't know. Like, but if you keep working that out in all of your life, how intentional are you with your rhythm? Have you ever thought about that? Like, if you think about this last week, you think about all that you did, what rhythms do you have in your life that actually furthered you in becoming somebody different? My guess would be that you have rhythms that make you very busy. My guess would be that you have rhythms that when you get cut off in the freeway, you probably end up cussing the person out because that thing that happens inside of you that I know very well, like you just can't control, right? Or like whatever's going on with your parenting and your kids. Like, what are the rhythms that are actually helping you become? Because I know you have rhythms that do. I have a lot of rhythms that do. How many rhythms do I have that actually shape who I'm becoming? And then how much of those rhythms, if you took a year, how many of those rhythms you have in place right now are you actually going to be different next year? I wonder how many years over years over years that we kind of just become, or really just stay the same people, but we just have these rhythms that are just doing different things all the time. What we want to do today is kick off our series. So we're calling this, what are we calling this? Look at that, Atomic Habits. It was there, and then it wasn't, and now it's there. But we're taking the book of Mark, and we're just grabbing a handful of themes, as Mark tells it, about the life of Jesus and the habits of Jesus. And because what we're looking at is that habits actually form and shape who we're becoming. And we can either be formed or we can be deformed. And the challenge is when we don't check our habits, oftentimes they're habits that are deforming us, meaning we're becoming busy, we're stressful, we're angry, we're bitter, you know, all the different things. But either way, they're still there. And so we want to take this and look at what are the ways in which Jesus actually lives his life, what are some key things, and then what's the invitation to us in that. And today we're going to start off in Mark 1 and actually talk about spiritual practices, or maybe known as spiritual disciplines. Spiritual exercises, spiritual workouts. But essentially what Scripture is talking about and what historical church has talked about in these are the rhythms of our life with God and with other people that shape who we are becoming. So in Mark 1, 9-13, it's a pretty big piece of Scripture. At the time Jesus came from Nazareth in Galilee and was baptized by John in the Jordan. Just as Jesus was coming out of the water, he saw heaven being torn open and the Spirit descending on him like a dove. And a voice came from heaven, "You are my Son, whom I love. With you I am well pleased." This kind of connects to a little bit of worship. But again, this piece right here, "You are my Son, whom I love. With you I am well pleased." Do you need to hear that this morning? My son, my daughter. Do you need to hear that? That God does in fact love you and that he is in fact pleased with you. My son, my daughter, whom I love, with you I am well pleased. And he continues, "At once the Spirit sent him out into the wilderness, and he was in the wilderness 40 days, being tempted by Satan. He was with the wild animals, and angels attended him." Now, with this, there's a lot going on here. I mean, this is connected to Old Testament and prophecies being fulfilled, all the things that are happening. And there's the symbolism of 40 days being tied to the Israelites and Exodus. So there's so many things to unpack here. But there's a piece here that I think stands out that sets the narrative of Jesus' life. And it's life with Jesus is a life with rhythm. So the very first thing that happens is Jesus is actually anointed. He's actually given the deity of God. He is blessed, and he's saying, "I love you. I am well pleased with you." And then what does he do? He moves out. He moves away. He finds himself in solitude. And amidst all of those key significant aspects that attach to the Old Testament, I wonder how much of it would not play out if Jesus was just this person that did stuff all the time, and that he was just busy with his life, and that he was always moving on to the next thing just to achieve and to do in his short time in ministry. Life with Jesus is a life with rhythm. And again, I ask you, what rhythms do you have in your life right now that are sustaining your life with Jesus? That is actually setting who you are becoming in life with Jesus. Because see, then it continues. Do you guys know what happens after this piece right here? Because this is kind of called the preparation for Jesus' ministry. And then what happens is he actually starts his ministry. Does anyone have their Bible open? What are like the headers that happen next, even to start with those? Temptation, okay? So that would still fall in the preparation. What happens after that? Ministry in Galilee, good. Starts actually moving outward, starts doing the things that he's called to do. And then what are a couple of the specific things that happen? Calls a disciple, next. Heals people, next. More healing, next. Casts out a demon, next. Preaches, and then. We read in the same Bible? There we go. He then does all these things, healing people, preaching, teaching. Like literally, I think next he casts out a demon. Like he's doing all this stuff, but right there in the middle, he draws away. He finds himself in a solitary place, a man that is on a mission within a short period of time to literally redeem the world. Can you imagine how busy he could be? When do you stop? I only got like almost 4 years for this. But he finds himself in this solitary place. Very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up. He left the house and went off to a solitary place where he prayed. Simon and his companions went to look for him. And when they found him, they exclaimed, "Everyone is looking for you." Now I think back to when Jesus was baptized. I think about the words that God actually spoke over him. Then I think Jesus starts doing some things, right? All these powerful, miraculous things. And then I wonder, what made those happen? What gave him the ability to be present to people like that? What gave him the energy? Because we're talking about both God and man here, right? There's some realities that I think we forget when we think about the holiness of Jesus. He is human. There are limitations to who he is. And I wonder how much of Jesus' rhythms of spiritual practices were to hear his Father's voice and to sit in God's presence. Who says, "You are my son whom I love. With you I am well pleased." You are my son. You are my daughter. I love you. I am well pleased. When's the last time you actually sat and received that? Because if Jesus needed that, how much more do we? And all that he's called to do. All that he's called to do. So I think about this morning. If you were to think about what does it look like this last week for you to draw away into a place of just retreat, of solitude, to be still, and to actually let God speak something to you or over you. Where would that have happened in your week? And I know instantly you think, I'm busy. I'm trying to raise kids, my job. You don't understand my job. It's so busy, and then email and, my phone's always there and, over and over and over again. If you think about your week, where would you have fit something like this? And I bet if you look over, it could oftentimes feel like you're just trying to add into an already busy life. Well, read scripture, that takes 8 minutes. Where am I going to do that? Prayer, but I don't have an hour just to carve out. Ryan, you work 1 day a week. Of course you have time for things like this. You can do these, but you don't know my life. If you were to think, how many excuses do you have? Seriously. How many excuses do you have? How many excuses do I have? And then I think about Jesus, and it's dude draws away. in the greatest defining moments of human history. And he goes to be by himself. But it's not just being with himself, is it? He actually knows that he can go and meet God there. He can meet someone who loves him and says, I am pleased with you. May this be the thing that sustains your work. May this be the thing that empowers you in your relationships. So if you were to think about that, maybe take your busiest day this week. What if you would have paused? What if you would have paused for a minute? Right in the middle of the day, right before that busy meeting, right before that project was due. And if you just sat and you allowed God to say, my daughter, I love you so much. I'm so pleased with you. May you just receive that. My son, I love you. I'm so pleased with you. You do not need to strive. Like you can sit right here. How would that have changed like the rest of your day? How would it have changed the way you interacted with that person that annoys you? How would it have changed the moment your kid was like screaming their head off? Like all the things that are happening in and around you. 1 minute, 30 seconds. How would that have changed your week this last week? And how would it have changed who you were becoming in and amidst that? How you did interact with other people. How you did interact with yourself. Life with Jesus is a life with rhythm. One rhythm we're capturing here. There's plenty more. But solitude. Solitude is defined by one spiritual author like this. At its core is simply refraining from interacting with other people in order to be alone with God and to be found by him. It's choosing to step away from human relationships for a predetermined period of time in isolation or anonymity to make room for God to occupy our lives. To step away, to pull away from others. Be intentional with a certain time of space for a predetermined period of time. And I know what starts to happen again. It's the yeah buts. Again, yeah, but you don't understand my life. Yeah, but have you seen my kids? That's one of mine. Yeah, but. Like you just don't understand like that other person. Like, yeah, but people need me. Yeah, but. Yeah, but. You just keep going and going and going and going. And this isn't just for those who are working endlessly. Think about some people here who might be in between work. Some people that might still be young enough where like you haven't started a career. The good old days. Like as you're in that, or like the retired, right? Some of you are retired, some of you will be soon retired, some of you are already dreaming about retirement at like 45. Like, is that's even happening? Well, it's like, well, this is me time, and like I'm chill. Like I don't do a lot, so I'm good. But are you ever asking God into that time of chillness and relax? Because then I think about a big part of this. We talked about kind of the busyness and some of the things that we feel inside. What about your purpose? What about your purpose? Like what are you supposed to be doing with your days, right? One of the greatest questions in probably human history is like, what's the will for my life? What may God have for me? What am I supposed to be doing? How do I define my meaning? All the different things go on and on and on. So it's not even just about pulling away, but it's actually having like your life defined for more meaning and purpose and so much more beyond just the chaos of your work and being defined as a parent or a married or a single. Like God actually starts to define who he wants you to become. And then I think the other piece in this is not only are we making decisions of how we go through our day, who we interact with, what we do, but every single thing has an emotional decision attached to it. And these are the currents that are just kind of like we're swimming in or floating through our minds and our heart, and we are so unaware. I was talking with Kim earlier before this. One of the things that was really wrecking me this week is that for me, the thing that oftentimes like shapes every decision I make is that through my own brokenness, I look at my life and the world through, am I doing a good enough job? Am I doing a good enough job? Which when I don't feel like I'm doing a good enough job, guess what I do? I do more and more and more and more. Because at some point, I'm going to do a good enough job, and that is when others will be pleased with me. That is when others will like me. That is where others will affirm me. That is when I will feel loved. And I will do, and I will do, and I will do. What is the emotional decision that's being processed with you every single day? Every single moment. How are you interacting with other people based on that? Because you have it, I promise you. Oftentimes it's attached to your parents or who parented you, because someone parented you. It's attached to early formations with kids and teachers. It's attached to your career and your employer. I mean, over and over again, you have been formed in a way in which you are protecting yourself. And one of the ways I do is, am I doing a good enough job? And the reality is when we start to do that and we live through that lens, is we start to project it on other people. You know who can't help define that is my wife. You know who really cannot help with that is my kids. But how much of that do I project onto them? You know who really can't help with that is you. Like as a church. But if I am incessantly running around doing things to try and get your approval, how reckless is that? Like nobody wants that. What's yours? What's your emotional decision making where when you can actually pull away from the busyness of your life to a solitary place for God to say, I love you and I am well pleased with you. You do not need to be defined by whether you can do a good enough job or not. How would that change the way you operate? What would that do to your anxiety level? What would that do to the fusions of relationships that you just can't emotionally detach from? What would that do to the anger and the resentment you find towards that person that betrayed you? What would you do to that annoying person at work that is just annoying and hard? There's just no way around it. Who are you becoming in all of this? So keeping all things in mind, I just want you to listen to this one more time. Feel free to close your eyes. Thinking about your week, thinking about how important you are and how busy you are, thinking about all that's going on. Very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up. He left the house and went off to a solitary place where he prayed. Simon and his companions went to look for him, and when they found him, they exclaimed, "Everyone is looking for you." A couple things. Do you hear the inconvenience in that? He got up early. Guessing the day already started early when the sun rose. So that means he's up before the sun. Okay, there's the whole thing there. He was very intentional with it. It wasn't oh man, look, I'm up at 4 a.m. I'm just going to do these really spiritual things to sustain my life. What a lucky day for me. No, today we have these alarms that we can set, and then it helps us do certain things at certain times. There's an intentionality to actually preparing for something like this. But then I want you to hear the freedom in this. As Simon came and yelled, "Everyone is looking for you." Everyone is looking for you. Could you imagine the demands of Jesus 2,000 years ago in these moments? I mean, he's already started to heal people. He's casting out demons. He's teaching. Everyone is just flocking to him. Yet he has a freedom to say, I need this. Because I wonder again how much of it is that when I am defined, when I am sustained, when I am filled, how much better am I for other people? Right? Oftentimes, the justification right now in our culture is that, no, you need to give yourself away. You need to keep doing and doing and doing because, man, that person really needs it. Oh, they're in need. And you just keep going and going and going and going and going. And it's one of the hardest things to say, I need to get away. I need to go back to the source that is defining everything that I'm actually doing. Some of you might fall on the other side where you actually are just naturally avoidant and never engage other people. There's another side to it. There's personality types, and that's a reality. But then I wonder, in that, are you still missing the defining moment? Because there's reasons, oftentimes, you could also avoid people and be less committal and, certain things. So this is across the board. It's not just our driven achievers like me. So he pulls away. What would that look like this next week for you? Sorry, did I spark any anxiety as you're already thinking about your busy week and the meeting you have on Monday and all the different things? What would this look like for you? Where can you pull away? Where can you find solitude? How can you actually practice the life of Jesus that he's inviting you to? So I want to do this. We're going to wrap up here. These two things. Then we'll watch a more rhythmic video because I think we need that for our souls before we leave today, other than the dude with no rhythm. who's like just plastered in the corner in his own. Anyways, that video. So here's the thing. There's three things I think we see in the life of Jesus over and over again through this solitude. One, preparing. I believe that in the things that Jesus was doing, we see this over and over and again, a part of him drawing away, it was actually preparing him for what he was going to do. For him to be a healthy, thriving, self-differentiated, psychology term, person, human being that is good for all people. He was preparing. He was hearing God's voice. He was preparing. One thing that came up in a class I was in recently is this little thing that I realize is that in these, especially like something like solitude, it's a rhythm of emptiness for God to fill. It's a rhythm of emptiness, meaning I'm going to pull away from all the things that I am doing, achieving, trying to shape the world in the way that I see it, controlling my own little kingdom and how that compares to other people's little kingdoms and all the different things. And it says, I'm going to pull away. I'm going to stop doing for a second. I'm going to stop thinking for a second. And actually give space for God to fill that in. How much more does that prepare us moving forward? Second is processing. We see this after Jesus' cousin, John the Baptist, gets beheaded. What does Jesus do right away? He retreats. He goes to a place of solitude. It's a place to process grief and loss and hardship and all the things that are going on in life that are so much bigger than you could ever manage on your own. It's a place to process. And then the other side is that it processes decisions. Have you ever made a bad decision before? Like you bought that car, or you got into that relationship, or you made the wrong turn. Like, I don't know, like a lot of different decisions. Have you ever made a bad decision? So go back to that decision, or like the 9,000 that you can think of. And could you imagine if you would have just sat and processed and been like, okay, hold on. Before I sign this paper, before I go on this date, before anything, like, God, where am I? Who are you? Who am I? Okay, you love me. Don't need to strive. I don't have to do this if I don't want. How would your decisions change? Like, would you make better decisions? You have like this spiritual insight to things. Could that improve your life in any way, shape, or form? Every bad decision I've made is because I was just brash. And I just was like, oh yeah, here's the thing I'm feeling inside of me. Let's do it. And it's like, wow, that was terrible. And now I'm wrecked and someone else is wrecked. And anyways. Third is prioritizing. No one is going to come to you and say, hey, you need to change the priorities in your life. God is not going to do that. I am not going to do that. Whoever you think is responsible for you is not going to do that. Okay, maybe you have that person in your life that thinks they get to tell you all your priorities. You know who that is. But realistically, how are you prioritizing the things that you do throughout the week? Who you spend your time with, how you earn your money. What are you doing in the off time? Jesus is saying that I am going to prioritize my life with God in these small spaces where I empty myself and I let him fill me up, and then that actually prioritizes everything else. I'm working through this with my coach right now because I have felt in the last 3 months out of control. Like better in control than I ever have before, but it's still out of control relative to who I am today. And I'm realizing that my priorities are so out of whack that it's been a lot of me doing good enough so that I can feel like someone is pleased with me. I found that in little areas over the last few months. And now it's actually taking the big rocks and saying, okay, here's the 6 things I'm going to calendar every week so that I can actually become someone different over this next year. And then you take the medium rocks and do the sand and all the different stuff. How are you prioritizing your life right now? And is that actually changing who you're going to be in the next year? So, what rhythms do you have? And here's the last piece. These practices can feel overwhelming, right? Again, you're like, look, I don't have time. I have a very busy life. So I'm going to ask you right now, we're going to process this out loud because I think this could be helpful for this week. If you were to think about your life right now, what are the rhythms that you already have in place where you could invite this in? What are the things that you're already doing where you could legitimately, in that time, space, whatever it is, pause and just be like, God, this space is yours. Will you have your way? Will you speak? So, name some. What are they? Driving. Yep. 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 And I would even add to that, press the off button and sit in the car. And what would it even look like to drive in the slow lane? Anyone ever tried that drives fast? I literally think sometimes, I'm just waiting for, the NASCAR contract to get offered to me. I love driving fast. I'm an aggressive driver. Anyways, what does it look like to drive in the slow lane and be off and, all right, God, this time's yours. How much are you in the car during the week? More. Come on. Shower. Keep going. Lunch breaks. More.
The moment I get the kids
Out the door. You have that moment of like, they're finally gone. Yeah, that's real. More. Come on. Think. Morning coffee. One over here? You can't go back now. TJ was going to say when using the bathroom. Yep, that's it. It's a vulgar way to put it, but like, who's, again, other than like, I know like some moms and even like, oh, no, my kids still break in even when I'm trying to go to the bathroom. Like, that's a reality. But like for most people, like even at work, like no one's around you, like take the time, okay?
Your phone shouldn't be there.
This is true. It's very true. Got one more. Yeah. So do you know, here's the other challenge. This thing right here. We don't talk about it enough. You know, 80% of people who own a smart device start their day by opening their phone. Let me ask you, when's the last time you open your phone and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so much more at peace? Like, oh my gosh, everybody loves me. Like honestly, when's the last time, oh, the world is a perfect place and just there's no chaos? Like, when's the last time that happened? I know the days that I start with my phone open versus I start with prayer or the Bible, I am a significantly different person. Because by the time I get to my coffee, I am just an anxious wreck of like, how do I fix this? How do I solve this? This person's mad at me. Like, I mean, just keep going. What if you like 15 minutes were like, I'm not going to do this? I don't know, grab a psalm, recite the Lord's Prayer, just say, Jesus, be with me this day. I don't know. Like, there's so many ways, but these moments that are already in your life, and then from there you can say, I'm going to go on a day retreat. Then from there, I'm going to get away for 2 days, and if you're married, you're going to give your spouse that same 2 days. Then you kind of start to do the bigger things that start to shape your life, but it starts with prioritizing. It starts with being intentional. It starts with actually setting these small times aside, and the others will build. So here's what we're going to do. Last thing, let's enjoy some rhythm. Yeah, let's play that video. Do we want to try that? Can we like choreograph real quick? But do you feel that? Like when there's rhythm and things are connected and they're flowing well and they're moving off of each other and everything's in sync. Like do you feel that compared to like homie in the corner doing his thing? Like I didn't feel as much anxiety in that. I could actually kind of like bob my head to a little bit and feel it. I'm going to invite the worship team forward. I want us to consider these things. What would it look like to reshape your life in a way where it's more like a Pentatonics video than a plastered frat guy in the corner? Like, what would that look like? What would it look like for you to legitimately be like, how am I flowing in and out of my days? Where am I inviting Jesus in to actually share and to speak and to guide and to shape me? And how does that all connect and weave in and out? And then how does that move and work with other people in your life? So you think through your week. Be like, is this homie in the corner or is this Pentatonics? Like, I mean, there's a way in which you can guide. And you know the feeling because I guarantee you will find less anxiety in your life when things flow. You'll find less pressure to perform or strive. You can actually step away from the needs of others and the needs of the world. So let's do this. I'm going to read this, and then we're just going to pause for a moment. And I just want you to consider, like, look at your next week. Just invite God in and be like, where do I do this? How do I do this? For some of you that, like, love your calendar, you need to, like, wipe your calendar clear and restart with some priorities. Those of you in relationships, you need to have a conversation with that other person. Like, what are my priorities? What are our priorities together? I mean, like, you need to take some time to actually think. And then you need to do this each week, each month, and each year. See, when there's rhythm, there's beauty. Jesus lived a life of beauty out of the rhythms in his life. And he extends the same invitation to you and I. Follow me. Follow my ways. Follow my rhythms. If you want to see what my presence and power can do in and through you, follow my rhythms. If you want to be overwhelmed by the love of God who calls you son, who calls you daughter, follow my rhythms. If you want to experience more peace, more healing, more of heaven breaking into earth, follow my rhythms. See, life with Jesus is a life with rhythm. So with eyes closed, an open posture, think about your week coming up. Where can you create space of solitude where you can hear, you are my son, you are my daughter, whom I love. With you, I'm well pleased.